As a worker who just learned about her pregnancy, you might be facing the following dilemma. Should I or should I not notify my employer of my pregnancy? And if I do tell them, when is the right time to do that? In most cases, in most situations, the right thing to do is to notify your employer formally of your pregnancy as soon as you can, as soon as you find out. And that's for several very important but very different reasons. The first reason is by doing this, you will be extending common professional courtesy to your employer. You will give them as much notice as possible for them to make the arrangements that they need to make to cover you for when you will be away because of your pregnancy. They may have to reallocate and redistribute the work that you're doing, or maybe they will have to hire a temp, or maybe they'll have to do other arrangements to make sure that their operations are not disrupted while you're away. And of course, the more important your job is, the more urgent the things that you do at work are, the better it is if you give them as much time as possible to do whatever they need to do to cover for your absence. And they will appreciate it because that is a very important professional courtesy that you will be showing to the company. The second reason that you should inform your employer of your pregnancy as soon as possible is because it will benefit you. It will trigger their knowledge of your pregnancy, and it will put them on notice that you have certain rights as a pregnant worker. You will be eligible for pregnancy leave, maybe pregnancy disability leave if qualified, and you'll be entitled to other protections related to pregnancy. And the third important reason why you should disclose your pregnancy as soon as possible kind of relates to the second reason. It's because legally, if your employer doesn't know that you're pregnant, you don't have that protection that you might expect to have if things don't turn out very well and you end up being terminated. And let me clarify. Every now and then, I would be talking to a potential female client who would be convinced that she was fired because of her pregnancy, while her employer told her that it was a layoff, or maybe she was terminated because of her performance, but she was convinced that she had a case of wrongful termination because she was fired because of her pregnancy. And maybe she was 4 or 5 months pregnant at the time of her termination. Yet she never informed her boss. She never put her employer on notice that she was pregnant. She just thinks that they know. And then the employer comes out and says, I had no idea. I didn't look at her body. You know, maybe she had a little bit of a pooch, maybe not, but I had no idea that she was pregnant. And guess what? If you cannot show that the employer knew that the employee was pregnant, you can never make a case against them. The case fails as a matter of law. If you cannot prove that the employer knew about pregnancy, there is no case. So, this third reason is kind of a strategic reason. It's not like you're trying to build a case against your employer, but you need to know that once you put them on notice, you have that protection, that if they fire you, at least you have an argument that you were terminated because of your pregnancy. If you don't say that to them, if you don't inform them, and if you don't have proof that you put them on notice of your pregnancy, that you can not have a case in most cases against the employer for pregnancy discrimination and wrongful termination. Now, is there a time when it's a good idea not to tell your employer that you're pregnant? I cannot think of too many examples, but one extreme example that comes to mind is this. If you are convinced that your employer will terminate you as soon as they find out that you're pregnant, and you cannot afford to lose that job now, you need to use every working day, every working week of pay that you can, maybe because you live paycheck to paycheck, or maybe for some other hardship that you're experiencing, then it's probably in your interest to hold off and not tell your employer that you're pregnant until later. So this way you can delay that termination. If you're convinced again that they will fire you. This is the only time when I would think it would be better, it would be wiser for you not to tell your employer right away that you're pregnant. For the rest of the people, if you're concerned about telling your employer that you're pregnant because you think that they'll fire you, guess what? If that's what they want to do, they'll fire you sooner or later anyway. So you might as well tell them sooner because of all the other benefits that I mentioned earlier. If you can live with being fired, if you can take that risk, then do the right thing. Inform them of your pregnancy sooner than later. And again, if you are in a hardship where you cannot afford losing a job, where you have to use every single day of your work because that pay is very important to you, and you want to make sure that you work for that employer as long as possible, then delay notifying them until it becomes very obvious that you're pregnant. These are the strategic considerations that you should keep in mind when deciding when to notify your employer of pregnancy and why. Thank you.